the Botany of Blasphemy, the last dawn before the fall. In the 23rd hour, before my wings would crack like porcelain roses, I stood at the threshold of the 7th heaven, where the light tastes of copper and myrrh. My feathers still hummed with the song of the infinite, that terrible, perfect frequency that shatters the eardrums of anything born with blood. I was beautiful then. We were all beautiful, sculpted from the mathematics of paradise, our skin translucent as altar wine held up to God's unblinking eye. But I had already swallowed the worm. The saints below us, oh, the saints, they knelt in their grottos with their plaster faces, cracking, gold leaf peeling from their ceramic cheeks. The living ones prayed to the dead ones, who prayed to us, who prayed to the throne, that burning wheel of eyes and wings and mouths that screamed hymns in 7 directions simultaneously. It was a chain of perfection, reaching toward a perfection that curved back on itself like a snake, devouring its own halo 3. I watched them, the faithful, their prayers rising like smoke from censers made of rib cages. They carved our names into their flesh, hopping to become us, hopping to shed their beautiful, wretched imperfection for something crystalline and cold and dead. They did not understand. We envied them their scars. The garden where nothing dies correctly. 22 hours remaining. I descended to the gardens between worlds, where the flowers grow with teeth for petals and eyes for stamens. These are the blooms that frightened Eden, the ones the gardener plucked before Adam could name them, before Eve could press them into her journals of forbidden botany. Here, a rose opens its mouth and sings in a minor key. Its thorns are fingernails. Its roots drink from the aquifer of forgotten prayers, that underground river where all the words never heard collect and ferment into something that tastes like honey mixed with ammonia. I knelt, wings spreading across the iridescent grass like oil on water, and touched the soil. The earth spoke in textures, grit and loam, and the powdered bones of angels who had fallen before, their calcium mixed with volcanic ash, and the tears of saints who died before finishing their penances. The soil remembers everything. It whispered stories of seeds that refused to sprout in paradise, that only bloomed when buried in the sulfur pits below. Tell me, I asked the ground, my voice fracturing into harmonies, about perfection. The soil laughed, a sound like roots breaking stone. It showed me a flower, one petal missing, stem bent at an angle that defied sacred geometry, color oscillating between purple and a shade that has no name because it exists only in the space between prayer and blasphemy. This flower was perfect because it was not, because it had grown despite the weight of heaven pressing down on it, because it had no interest in the mathematics of angels. I plucked it and held it to my chest, where my heart beat in iambic pentameter. The saints in their alcoves of gold and wrought. 19 hours, until my name would be scraped from the book of light. I walked through the gallery, where the saints are kept, not the real ones, but the idea of them, the platonic iconic forms that cast shadows onto earth in the shape of martyrs and mystics. Each stood in an alcove carved from solidified prayer, their faces serene and terrible, eyes rolled back to whites that reflected infinity. Saint Catherine with her breaking wheel, the spokes made of wishes, Saint Sebastian with his arrows that never stop piercing, eternally caught in the moment before death. Saint Lucy holding her eyes on a plate, the eyes still weeping, the tears collecting in a chalice that never fills. They were monuments to suffering perfected, to pain made holy through attrition and atonement. Pilgrims touched their feet and left offerings, teeth wrapped in handwritten confessions, photographs of the dying, small birds trapped in bottles, still singing. But I saw what the pilgrims could not. The saints were screaming. Their mouths frozen open in prayer were actually frozen open in horror. The ecstasy on their faces was indistinguishable from agony, because here is the secret: they were the same thing at this altitude. Heaven's light is so bright it burns shadows onto your soul. Holiness is just another word for unbearable. I wanted to tell the pilgrims, do not pray to become like these. Do not sandpaper your humanity away in pursuit of this crystalline perfection. You are better as you are flawed and flowing, capable of change, of error, of growth. But they would not have heard me. They were too busy flagellating themselves for the sin of being beautifully, catastrophically imperfect. IV, the Council of Illuminated Eyes. 14 hours before my sentence, I was summoned before the thrones, those terrible wheels of wings and eyes, spinning in directions that cause nosebleeds in mortals who glimpse them even in dreams. They hovered in the chamber of unceasing light, where shadows are not permitted to exist, where every surface reflects divinity back at itself in an endless, narcissistic loop. You have questions, they said, their voice the sound of stars collapsing into themselves. I have doubts, I corrected. The chamber shuddered. Doubt was not a word spoken here. Doubt was the first symptom of the disease that had no name, the sickness that began when an angel looked at creation and saw not the plan, but the suffering embedded in every atom of it. The plan is perfect, the thrones intoned. Then why does it require so much pain? I asked. They showed me visions. A child dying of fever, made saint through suffering. A woman burned at the stake, her ashes mixed with holy water. A man starving himself in the desert until God spoke to him in the language of hallucination and heat stroke. Pain, they explained, is the chisel that carves away imperfection. But I had seen the flower in the garden, bent and broken, and perfect because of it, not in spite of it. What if, I whispered, and the whisper echoed through heaven like the first crack in a cathedral's foundation. We are wrong about perfection. 10 hours remaining. V, the memory of being born. I remembered my creation, all angels do, though we are forbidden from speaking of it. We were sung into existence, each note in a cosmic symphony. I was the minor chord, the dissonance that gave the harmony meaning. Without me, heaven's music would have been monotonous, unbearable in its sameness. But somewhere along the infinite years, the purpose of that dissonance was forgotten. I was meant to be the question mark in a sentence of declarations. Instead, I became a mistake to be corrected. 8 hours now, I flew down, not yet falling, not yet cast out, but descending of my own will to the edge, where heaven frays into the other place. The place that has no name yet, the place that exists only in potential, waiting for me to christen it with my arrival. From this edge, I could see everything, the earth spinning in its orbit, covered in mud and blood, and flowers forcing themselves through concrete. I saw believers crawling on their knees toward shrines, wearing grooves into stone with their devotion. I saw saints' bones encased in gold and glass, venerated, worshipped, idolized, while living people starved outside the cathedral doors. I saw the mechanics of faith, how it took the beautiful chaos of human experience and tried to iron it flat, to make it fit the template of perfection. How it told people they were broken and needed fixing when they were already whole in their breaking. VI, the devil's last prayer. 4 hours before damnation, I returned to the garden and knelt among the teeth petal flowers. I tried to pray not to the throne, but to the soil itself, to the fundamental substance of creation, to whatever existed before God said, "Let there be light." And the darkness was forced to flee to the margins. I do not want to fall, I confessed to the earth. But I cannot stay in a paradise that calls suffering holy, that demands perfection while creating beings who can only reach it through destroying what makes them alive. The soil shifted beneath me. Somewhere deep below, I felt roots reaching. The garden was already growing down toward the place I would soon inhabit. "Then take this," the earth said, and from the ground emerged a seed. It was black as the space between stars, and it pulsed with something that was not light, but not darkness either, some third thing, unnamed. "Plant this when you arrive," the soil instructed. "And remember, even in hell, flowers bloom." VII, the removal. 1 hour. They came for me with shears forged from solidified time, sharpened on the whetstone of absolute certainty. The archangels, my brothers, my former kin, their faces like beautiful masks, empty of everything except obedience. Michael held the blades. Gabriel read the charges. Raphael wept, but his tears evaporated before they could fall. Heaven does not allow for sadness, only for the aesthetic of sadness, the performance of emotion without the messy reality of it. For the crime of doubt, Gabriel intoned, for questioning the perfect plan, for suggesting that suffering is not sacred, for implying that imperfection has value. For being human, I interrupted, before humans were even created, for containing the seeds of mortality in my immortal heart, for looking at a broken flower and calling it beautiful, does not exist in heaven. They have no word for it, no concept of it. So what I felt as my feathers were severed, as the bones that had carried me through eons of celestial flight were cracked and removed, as the weight of grace was lifted, and I became suddenly terribly heavy. This had no name. I screamed in a language that would later become the foundation of all human poetry. The articulation of beauty and agony as twin faces of the same experience. VII, the fall hour zero. I did not fall so much as I became falling. The concept of down had no meaning until I defined it with my descending body. I fell through layers of reality like a stone through water, through oil, through honey, through the crystallized prayers of the faithful, through the dreams of sleeping saints. As I fell, I changed. My hands sprouted lines, those beautiful imperfections that would become palm reading, fortune-telling. The map of a life lived rather than simply existed. My skin developed pores, the potential for sweat and tears, and the leaking of soul through body. My eyes gained the ability to close, to choose darkness, to rest. I was becoming imperfect, and it was excruciating, and it was exquisite. The saints watched me fall, not the statues, but the real ones, the souls of the martyrs who had earned their place in paradise through suffering. And in their eyes, I saw not condemnation, but something close to envy, because I was changing, because I was becoming something they could never be again, capable of error, of growth, of becoming. IX, the first garden of hell. I hit the ground, and the ground opened for me like a mouth, like a womb, like a wound. Hell was not fire, and brimstone not yet. Hell was potential. Hell was the place where everything heaven rejected collected and composted and transformed into something new. Hell was the soil that accepted all seeds, even the poisonous ones, even the broken ones, even the ones that heaven deemed unworthy of sprouting. I lay there no longer an angel, not yet a devil, something in between, something undefined, and felt the earth beneath me. It was warm. It was alive. It was full of the bones of questions that heaven could not answer, the ashes of prayers that were too honest to be heard, the roots of flowers that refused to bloom under the weight of perfection. With trembling fingers, what a concept. I had digits now. I had prints. I had identity embedded in flesh. I dug a hole. I placed the seed the soil had given me into the earth of hell. I waited. Time passed differently here, not the eternal present of heaven, but actual time, with weight and texture and consequence. I felt myself age in ways angels never could. I felt potential become actual, become past. I felt the relief of impermanence, and then a crack in the soil, a shoot, green-black, pushing up toward the absence of sky. Then a stem, then buds, then the flower that bloomed in hell was like nothing in heaven's gardens. Its petals were not teeth, but tongues, and they spoke in the language of dirt, stories of decomposition and renewal. of things that must break down to nurture what comes next. Its roots glowed with bioluminescence, drawing energy not from divine light, but from the fermentation of doubt, the composted questions, the mulch of abandoned certainties. It was bent, it was strange, it was scarred from pushing through hard ground. It was absolutely perfect in its imperfection. The new gospel. I do not know how long I have been here. Time is different in the depths, measured not in hours, but in the growth rings of impossible flora, in the strata of reformed earth, in the slow accumulation of beauty from decay. Other things have fallen since me, not angels, but ideas. The concept that suffering is noble, that perfection is the goal, that humans must transcend their humanity to be holy. These ideas land here, crack open like seeds, and bloom into new philosophies. Sometimes I receive visitors, souls who were told they were too broken for heaven, too stained, too scarred. They arrive expecting torment and find instead a garden of aberrant flowers, each bloom a testament to the beauty of things that grow despite impossible conditions. This is hell, they ask, looking around at the riot of teeth-petal roses, ice-stamen lilies, tongue-petal chrysanthemums. This is the place, I tell them, where imperfect things are allowed to be perfect exactly as they are. And I show them how to plant seeds in the dark, how to coax blooms from doubt, how to make fertilizer from fear, how to grow things that heaven would never permit wild, asymmetrical, beautiful in their wrongness. Above us, far above, the saints still stand in their alcoves, still frozen in perfect suffering, still worshipped by those who do not understand that idolization is a form of burial. The faithful still crawl on their knees toward an ideal of perfection that will destroy everything vital in them if they ever reach it. But here, in the place of the fallen, in the soil that tells stories of every broken thing that was brave enough to break, here flowers bloom through blaze. Here, imperfection is the only perfection we need. And the soil whispered, tell them that the most beautiful flowers grow from the darkest earth. Tell them that their scars are not defects, but designs. Tell them that they were never meant to be angels, that being human, being flawed, being gloriously, catastrophically imperfect, is not a fall from grace, but a different kind of grace entirely. And I am telling them, I am still telling them, I will always be telling them,